and I want to welcome you here to the 14th arrondissement, the episode I'm calling Montsouris Meditation. And we're starting off with a little bit of meditation here. We're in the 14th district of Paris. This is an area that is very local, rather off the beaten track. And look at this lovely little leafy walkway. I'll wait for a few more live viewers to show up. We're currently hiding inside of a structure right now to get this view. In fact, we're looking at the Allée Samuel Beckett, named after the Irish novelist who lived very close by in Montparnasse in the 14th arrondissement. Welcome everybody. Bonjour to all of you. It's great to see those familiar names coming up live. So here, this lovely tree-lined alley named after Sam Beckett. And where we are currently, let me zoom out a little bit. Let me show you. Can you make out where we are actually currently? Some of you will already know. There's a clue, there's a clue, there's a clue. There we go. It's always nice to be tucked away inside of a Wallace fountain. So what a beautiful stretch here, the Samuel Beckett Alley. And what it does is it leads from the north where we're looking, it leads toward us to the Parc Montsouris. And that's why I've called this episode Montsouris Meditation. Bonjour. I can see everybody saying hello from around the world. Fantastic. So get ready for some meditation here. Thank you for joining me. I know a lot of you take time out of your very busy and much deserved weekend to join me here live. So fantastic. I'm so excited to show you this area. Montsouris Meditation. What exactly do I mean by that? Well, because we're going to meditate on some beautiful, leafy, bucolic, village-type atmospheres, which has sort of been the theme for this series all summer long. I've been really intent on focusing on the little villages of the city. There are so many of them. It's really remarkable. Speaking of leafy, hi everybody. It's great to see you there. I'm sorry I can't say bonjour to all of you individually, but know that I appreciate you being here. And so the alley that we were looking at leads us to the Parc Montsouris. There we go, isn't that lovely? Let's walk over there. Got a bit of a lull in the traffic here. I see Michelle and Clara and Phyllis Cartwright. Phyllis Cartwright says, love it already. Can always count on that enthusiasm coming from Phyllis. So it feels a little bit dark, doesn't it, this image? Let me see what I can do about that. Let me see if I can't tweak that a little bit. I guess the camera's doing what the camera wants to do. That's all right. Look at this beautiful statue here. Now, the Parc Montsouris here, we could talk about it all day long, in fact, but I'm going to dedicate an entire episode to this in the future. Today, it's something different, our Montsouris meditation, as the title implies. So we're not going to spend too much time here, but I got to mention, this 14th arrondissement, think of it as a version of Montmartre. I know a lot of you have come through here, are familiar with Montmartre and the story of it, where it was outside the city limits, which was the case for the 14th district as well, this Montsouris section, also referred to as the Montrouge part of Paris. There's a beautiful little security guards pavilion from back in the day. Isn't that a lovely view? So think of this outside pre-1860, when Napoleon III, as emperor, wanted to expand the city. This was swallowed up and became part of Paris and started to be developed in the mid-19th century, just like Montmartre. Also just like Montmartre, this area was sort of dingy and run down. It was the outskirts. It was sort of a rough and tumble crowd. Little shanty villages and a few windmills, here and there. And in fact, there used to be a windmill up on the hill of Montsouris. The name Montsouris actually translates into the mountain of the mice. And so the going theory about the name of Mice Mountain is because there used to be a windmill here that was really rarely used. It was kind of run down and dingy and dirty, and they were never grinding anything in the windmill. And it was called the Moulin Montsouris, which could translate into even the mice, the rats, were making fun of this windmill because there was never any grain or wheat to eat on the floor. And so even the mice decided it wasn't worth their effort to hang out in the windmill because it was never used and there was never anything to eat, no crumbs left, as it were. So it was called the Moulin Montsouris. The mice were making fun of the windmill because it was so lame. And so Montsouris, apparently, over the years, was transformed into Montsouris. Again, we're going to come back another episode, and I will dedicate an entire show, an entire walk to this park, because there's a lot going on. But today I want to show you something else that's even more special. You can see the Parisians at play here. If you're just joining, we're in the 14th arrondissement. David Dubois is watching from work. Fantastic, David. Throw that work away, David, right into the old trash bin. Okay, so let me show you. We got to get out of here. We're leaving the park to the western side. The real reason I called this episode Montsouris Meditation is because of little streets running along the western edge of the park. This one is called, you can see, the Square Montsouris, Square Montsouris. The square of the Montsouris district. So let me zoom in here. This is going to be fun. You're going to enjoy this. For those of you who haven't been here yet, it's quite a discovery. Now, technically it says, look, private property. But oddly enough, it's still open to the public. So I think they put that sign, private property, just to keep hooligans away and delivery trucks. They don't want, the traffic of Paris using this as a proper road to drive through. And so pedestrians are very much allowed to walk through. And so I want to give you a great, thorough, meditative stroll through this village atmosphere. It's called the Square Montsouris, or Montsouris Square. Just perfect cobblestones, perfect little residential leafy residences that we've really grown to love this summer, as I've been focusing on these bucolic country settings that Paris actually does surprisingly well. So get ready, we're going to take a nice slow stroll up that beauty. Clara Borges, the most amazing comment. She says, "We learned so much from you, Corey. What a gift you are to all of us." Well, streets like this are a gift to me, Clara, and so how can I not pay that forward? Now, if you're new to this series, you should know that I switch out the lenses from time to time, and so that's exactly what I'm going to do now. I'm going to set this down. Bear with me for one sec. I'm going to switch from zoom to wide angle so you can really get a feel for what's going on here. There we go. Oh, it's glorious. Oh, it's glorious, people. This is heaven on earth right here. Heaven on earth. I gotta go wide just so I can show you the stunning homes here. Now, if you've been following this series this summer, very recent episodes, we've seen areas like La Mouzaille, we've seen areas like Villa d'Avielle and La Petite Alsace and Butte-aux-Cailles, and there's this recurring theme of, in the early 1900s, they had social housing projects, and they would build these little cobblestone alleys on purpose to build social, affordable housing. This street is half and half. Half of it is, or was at least, designed for the working class families around town. And then half of the homes were allowed to be built by any architect or owner who wanted to express themselves. So for that reason, you've got quite a mix of different architecture here, sort of the city-built social housing and the more private, expressive architectural gems. A little garden there. Thanks for the hearts. I see everybody popping the hearts up. I'm going to try to keep it quiet and respectful. The sun came out just for us. this rose bush. Dawn's asking how expensive it is now. It's probably got to be just about as expensive as it gets, right? Because you got the best of both worlds. You can easily raise a family here. You've got the park right next door. Hope you can all hear me. I'm gonna really try to be quiet, but also not be panting like a dog into the microphone. It always bothers me when I watch the replays of my videos and I can hear myself breathing. So I'm gonna try not to do that much. Look, the visuals are dynamite. Hey, Christina Consolet saying she's loving the meditative stroll. I'm so glad. I'm going to take it nice and slow today. So most of this construction is 1920s and 1930s, which was definitely a boom in this concept of building these little villages, or villas as they're often referred to. Again, this one is called a square, oddly enough, even though it's not shaped like a square at all. It's just a nice, gentle incline as you make your way up. So a building like this, the orange one here, would have been an example of not the social housing, but an architect being allowed to strut his stuff. Speaking of which, look behind me here, number 15. We've got these rather odd, very artsy circular mirrors attached, and then I'm going to try to zoom out a little bit and show you the overall vibe. So more modernist and clean and simple. That blue sky. Clara says the video's clear and crisp for her. I'm glad. Again, if you're new to this idea, if it's ever blurry or choppy, the live stream, the HD replay will be uploaded to my YouTube and Facebook a little bit later. Got that on one side, and then behind me, let me show you what there is. Jill Kerner just made an astute comment that there's an Art Deco vibe to some of these. It's absolutely true. Which Jill would have fit perfectly with the style of the 20s and 30s when a lot of this was developed. Gretchen says, please befriend someone there. I want to see the inside of a house. I'm working on it, Gretchen. Always working on that. What I'm going to do is we're going to go to the end of this alley, and then I'm going to turn around and put the zoom lens back on so we can really savor some of the details. Admittedly, you'll see on this side here that you can see it was the social housing project of the 20s and 30s, where it's a little, more simplified and made of brick. But even so, even though it's housing that wasn't meant to be fancy, boy, did the city know how to create these beautiful neighborhoods for working class families, middle class families. It always makes me wonder why we can't do that nowadays. I guess maybe the populations are even larger and you can't quite build like that anymore. But it's a very more modernist vibe. But then right next to it, look at this, one of the highlights of the street at the end here, number 40. There was a trend in the early 20th century to go back to these country-style, half-timber, almost Tudor-style themes. That was very common. So this isn't authentic as far as being from the Renaissance or the Middle Ages. It was just built for an architect. It wasn't just architects that were expressing themselves here. If we turn around at number 35, it's right here. This gentleman, have you heard of a painter called Soutine? Because, I always come with a few images, sort of a show and tell vibe here. Soutine was a French and Russian painter. And let me show you what he was up to. He's famous for doing these, in particular, portraits like this, if you can make that out. Very expressive, a lot of movement. Hopefully it's focusing for you there. So that's Soutine. And he lived here in the late 20s. He was a painter known for the Expressionist style, and that's a very broad term, the Expressionist style, but his contemporaries would have been people like Egon Schiele and Francis Bacon, Lucian Freud and Kandinsky, Chagall. So yeah, his name is Soutine, and the image credits are always in the description of my replays. So if you ever want to track down these images or find out who I was talking about, you can just check that. I got some more great paintings to show you on this walk. Margaret Croft says she loves the show and tell. I'm glad. I'm glad the extra effort is worth it. Okay, so we get to the end of the street, and we are going to turn around in a moment. I want to take you back. We're going to do a double dip. Look at this building here. Speaking of modern, it's actually described as a cubist-style home. It's nothing too flashy, but it's perfectly indicative of that time period we've been talking about. Well, it was built as a home and a studio for another artist. This guy you haven't heard of, likely. His name was Ozenfant. And this is one of his paintings. Beautiful, if you can make that out. And I can only hope I'm pronouncing his name right, Ozenfant, or Ozenfant. Now, Ozenfant here, building these beautiful, what they call post-cubist. And so you had Picasso coming through and painting cubist images like this, still lives, kind of deconstructing a scene and looking at things from different angles and whatnot. And so cubism bled into this, which is called post-cubism. And the gentleman who lived here was one of the proponents of post-cubism, also called purism. Well, the architect who built this was no no-name architect. We refer to him as Le Corbusier. Le Corbusier was a big deal. He was a French-Swiss architect who lived quite a while in Paris. And he was also a painter. So the painter lived here, and then the architect painted this. So you can see it's a very similar style. So the two gentlemen, the owner of the house and the architect who built it, both created this post-cubist style known as purism. And they had these manifestos and these new philosophies about what was the art world post-cubism, which post-Picasso's boom, essentially. And so that's lovely, isn't it? Now, this architect who painted this, Le Corbusier, you might think, oh, well, isn't that lovely that he birthed, images like this into the world? But there was one project that he had that, thank goodness, it never happened. It never saw the light of day. Because those of you who are big Paris fans and you follow the blogs and the historical articles of Paris, you might recognize this image. Have you ever seen this? This was Le Corbusier, the same architect, who proposed in the center of Paris. He proposed all of these apartment buildings. And I hope it's in focus for you. Can you make that out? You can see on the bottom right-hand side the Ile de la Cité where Notre Dame is. So we're talking literally this is the Louvre, where my finger is. This is the Palais Royal. And right next to it he wanted to build, oh boy. And basically nobody took him seriously. They were like, are you kidding me? Right in the heart of historic Paris. But anyway, that's a pretty famous image of Le Corbusier and what he would have done with Paris had he had his druthers. Luckily, he just stuck to buildings like this, and he stuck to his painting because that was quite nice. So someone gets to live up there, and someone gets to live here as well. We're at the end of the Square Montsouris. Look at that. Oh, yes. Margaret Croft says, so glad they nixed that plan. Hey, Holly, I can see you there. Nice to have you. She says that would have been a travesty. Everyone's saying no. So yeah, it's a resounding no on his plan for Central Paris, but hey, the guy could paint, right? Okay, we're going to switch lenses again because I got to show you something else before we go back up this lovely street for more meditation. Back to the zoom because look at these beauties. Woo. What a lovely bonus as you come, from that leafy alleyway. What's going on here? In fact, these are part of an enormous reservoir of water, drinking water. When Napoleon III expands Paris and this 14th arrondissement becomes part of the city, there's a big problem because they're developing all of these urban projects and the residential areas, and they need to bring drinking water. At the time, in the mid-1800s, they were still drinking out of the Seine. They were drinking out of the canals, like the Canal de l'Ourcq and the Canal Saint-Martin, and so they had to do their best to redirect some sort of fresh water system here. And if I pan around, there's this huge, enormous sort of grassy knoll, as it were, elevated, and it houses an enormous reservoir that was designed by a gentleman called Belgrand. Belgrand was the guy in charge of water for Napoleon III and Haussmann. This is all Baron Haussmann era as well. So it's all off limits. You can't get to the top there. But when it was built, this was the largest reservoir in the world. Apparently 200,000 cubic meters of water. Whatever that means, I don't even know what a cubic meter of water really feels like, but aren't those beautiful? That's where the sources would come in, and they would collect all the water. And these were ways that you could actually look and access and maintain what was going on in the reservoir. So lovely. Sort of, you can't visit those, but it's a nice visual here as you get to the end of the Square Montsouris. Admittedly, it looks like they could almost be a metro entrance, right? Like one of those Art Nouveau, Hector Guimard entrances, but they were built just slightly before the whole Art Nouveau vibe. Pretty classic tile, glass, iron structure. And I just think that's a lovely little bonus for us. Still provides water, from what I know, to this area. Okay, so before I end the public version of this walk and continue with my Patreon supporters, we're just going to take one last trip down here. Oh, thanks, Marsha Miller. She says, Corey, you're so knowledgeable. I appreciate it. It helps to have a good old case of OCD when it comes to making maps and taking notes. So if you ever come through here, remember to be quiet, respectful. You're allowed to take photos, but don't go overboard. Some of you may be familiar with that recent article with the Rue Crémieux next to Gare de Lyon, where the Instagrammers were taking it over, and apparently the Instagrammers are taking over the lavender fields in the south of France. But they haven't found this street yet, so come here and be nice and respectful and enjoy even the pretty streets that the bloggers don't quite hang out at. I'll take this street any day over the Rue Crémieux. Alright, let's see what else I can show you. I hope you caught all those little birdhouses attached to that last one. Gretchen Rivers. You crack me up. Gretchen says this is the only acceptable type of double dip. The grape and leaf motif here that makes its way around. June Parr makes a great point. Paris pulls off this magic trick over and over. I see it happen where there's a busy area like a boulevard or a park, and then right next door you can find the absolute opposite. After 9 years living here full time, Paris still impresses me with that magic trick.
C'est samedi après, mais j'ai pas de vie, donc elle m'appelle.
All right, we're almost to the end, and we're going to wrap up the public version of our meditation, and I'm going to move on to a private extension of this walk, because this is not the only leafy cobblestone residential abbey, folks. Alley, I should say. An abbey would be nice too, but today it's just alleys. This is not the only one. They line the entire western edge of the Parc Montsouris, and that's going to be as a thank you to my patrons. If you want to become a Patreon supporter, you'll find the link in the description here. It helps me to continue this project and to help it survive and thrive. Helps me to invest even more time and resources into this project, giving you a free live tour in real time every single weekend. And you'll get rewards for your generosity if you choose to pledge and help me out with this. One of those things is a tour extension where we can continue these beautiful vibes with our amazing Frye community that we've created via Patreon. Imagine coming home to this every day. Wow. And then you got the park. Well, there it is, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. Maybe I'm a little bit dewy from the sun here. Episode number 59, Montsouris meditation. We barely stepped foot in the park, which is the main attraction here. And even though there are thousands and thousands of people in that park right now, nobody's here. It's incredible. Let me get that in the shot. So I think this is a good composition to end on. Again, Corey Frye, I'm a full-time tour guide. If you're coming through Paris and you want to take tours with me in person, feel free. You've got the link in the description here. The HD replay of this is going to go up nice and crisp and clean on Facebook and YouTube soon. And become a Patreon supporter. Help me out and help me get to all the little nooks and crannies like this and continue to share them with people around the world. And also you get a lot of rewards in return, I promise, including PDF maps if you want to find out where all this stuff is. So you can learn all about that in the description. Okay, my Patreon supporters currently, you're going to head over to our private Facebook group. You know the drill by now. And I'm going to continue the walk all throughout this area with some more little leafy, unimaginable, breathtaking streets, okay? So give me a minute and I'll see you all there. If you want to see the extension and you're not a Patreon supporter, I think you know how it works by now. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. Thanks for supporting this, and thanks for being a viewer. Thanks for spreading the word. I will see you not next week, because I got to take a week off, but the week after, okay? So note that down. Take care, everybody. I'll see my Patreon supporters in just a few minutes. Can't bring yourself to Paris. I'm going to bring Paris to you. I had to slip that in right at the end, all professional-like. And I hate goodbyes, but here it is. See you later. Check you out on the next episode.